it's an eerie situation. The sirens have not stopped screaming since we arrived on the university campus. If 9 persons have already been brought into Brackenridge Hospital, then more must be on their way, because these ambulances are running back to the hospital, and they're running back hot.
As the bodies fell across the campus, ambulances responded from funeral homes across the city. In short order, 39 people, either killed or wounded by Whitman, were taken to the city's Brackenridge Hospital.
I guess we all thought it couldn't be happening, but at the same time, we had to do what had to be done. We'll worry about this after we get the work done. But right now, we have to attend the patient. I myself pronounced 4, maybe 5 patients dead. The wounds were so obviously mortal. A girl who was about 6 or 7 months pregnant was shot, and when it exited her pelvis, it disrupted one of the major arteries in her pelvis, and they almost lost her in surgery. That was really a heroic effort, but they succeeded, and she was perhaps the last one to recover. I think it was 7 or 8 or 9 months before she was fully recovered from those wounds, but she lost a child.
One of the things we do in this business of news reporting is we're very conscious of relatives of people who are injured or are serious. We seldom ever broadcast the names of people who have been killed in any manner until relatives have had a chance to be notified. It's just the decent thing to do. In this case, with the university being so much an integral part of this city and its life, and so many people being injured and shot, we made a quick decision at the very beginning. We've got to release the names of those who have been shot or those who are injured or whatever, just because it is important for people to know that this one person may have been shot. Well, there were thousands of other people who knew folks who were in or around the campus, and they needed to be reassured that this was not one of theirs as well. So we did broadcast those names. Joe Roddy was at Brackenridge Hospital in the emergency room, but Joe went down the list of names, and it tragically, what you always fear when you release the name of someone before you notify the relatives, the negative impact of that happened, and it happened in our own newsroom. Paul Bolton was the first news director at Channel 7. Paul Bolton was the first news director for KTBC Radio. And he was the first face and voice to deliver broadcast journalism to this community. As Joe was reading the list of names, he went through all the lists and says, that's it for now. We don't know if these are dead or injured, but these are the folks who have been identified as brought into Brackenridge Hospital. As he finished that report and says, and now back to you, or something like that, Paul Bolton, our news director at the time that was retired, came into the newsroom and was working, and he was there and heard Joe's report on the radio. He broke in on the air and says, Joe, I can hear his voice now just wavering. Joe, would you please read those names again? Everybody's interested in those names. I think you have my grandson on that list. It was his grandson. Joe read the list again and went through it, talked about it, and said, as he went down the list, he didn't know it. He didn't know the grandson's name. His grandson was his namesake grandson. It was Paul Bolton Sontag, and it turns out that Paul Bolton Sontag and his girlfriend, Claudia Rutt, were getting ready to enroll at the University of Texas as freshmen. They graduated from high school in Austin, and they were walking down the drag, going into the co-op, buying books and items that they needed for the fall semester when they were both shot and killed. Paul Bolton heard that on the air. After Joe finished that list, the next voice you heard was not Bolton's. The next voice you heard was Jay Hodgson. And Jay broke in and says, that's it, Joe, I think we've got it. And then he immediately took Paul Bolton out of the newsroom.
In the aftermath of the Whitman murders, city leaders realized the funeral home drivers were inadequately trained in emergency care. In the months following the murders, the city of Austin created the Austin Ambulance Service and the modern Emergency Medical Services, or EMS, as it is known today, was created. As dozens of deer rifles returned fire in a vain effort to pick Whitman off, 3 police officers and a civilian named Alan Crum took matters into their own hands. Making their way across campus, the men rode the elevator to the top floor and prepared to face the unknown killer on the confined space of the observation deck.
As I was going up the elevator, I decided, hey, this is getting pretty serious, because you could still hear all that fire, all that shooting. You know, it was kind of muffled in the elevator, but you could still hear it. Being a good Catholic that I was, I decided to say an act of contrition, which is a prayer that I was taught to say in case imminent death is probable, that this way atone for your sins, and maybe the pearly gates will be open for you, you know. So I said this prayer as I went up. When I reached the 27th floor, of course, I had my gun out, and the elevator door open, and I was facing Jerry Day's pistol, and this other man that had a white shirt on and had a rifle, and they were pointing it at me, and I was pointing the gun at him, and so it's just King's X. We smiled and let out a sigh of relief, and I got out there. So a gentleman came out, and he had a white shirt on, a pair of white shoes, and he was bloody, and the white shoes were bloody, women's shoes. And he said, that SOB has killed my family up there. Let me have your gun, I'll go kill him. And we had to, Jerry and I had to wrestle with him to restrain him, because he wanted to get our weapons. And we couldn't have a distraction like that. So we wrestled him to the next elevator, and we pushed him inside the elevator, and Jerry had to restrain him and hold him, and we sent Jerry down with him to get him out of the way. And I started going up when the man with the rifle said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go look for the guy. And he said, well, you're not going by yourself. He says, I'm coming with you. And boy, I felt so happy that he volunteered to come with me, because at that time I felt pretty lonely, you know, but now that he was at my side, I was happy, ready to go. So there's only one exit, and that's a glass door on the southeast corner. He had the dolly that he had used to transport all that materials up there. He had it propped against the door. I pushed and really had to do a lot of effort before I could push the door back, and the dolly went over, and he clang, 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 you know. And so I stood there at the door, cracked it open, and I was waiting with my pistol. I thought he'd come to investigate the sound, but there was so much rifle fire that I guess he didn't hear it. For some reason, I turned around, and that was Houston McCoy was behind me. He had a shotgun. He had come up and come out. He's a tall guy. He's over 6 feet tall. And he was standing kind of straight up with his head down, and I had to motion to him with my hand, give him some hand signals to get down, and it didn't seem like he comprehended, but a couple of rounds hit above his head, you know, a couple of feet up there. And I think he got the message then, because then he got down. Then I finally saw the sniper sitting in a sitting position, aiming his rifle at the southwest corner. And right away I thought, that civilian has left his position and he's aiming at him, he's going to shoot him. So I fired a shot at him, and I hit him on the left side, and he jumped up to his feet like a cat, and he was trying to bring that M1 carbine to bear down on me, and I just kept advancing and shooting, and I hollered at McCoy to fire, which he did. McCoy hit him with a shotgun, and it just kind of spun him around. My gun was empty at that time. I dropped my gun, I reached and got the shotgun and blasted him one more time as he hit the deck. And that was the end of it.
Chief Miles had a diagram prepared to illustrate what happened then.
Is drawing a diagram here that will show you roughly, which is north now, Bill?
This is north.
Okay.
South, east, west. Martinez came out here and crawled around at this point.
That's the roof over there.
This is that's the other. Looking down on top of the thing. Up here is the bell. This is the wall around the inner part of the building here. The bell is above here. Martinez came out and went around the east side crawling. Crum came out and went west this way. and the subject was sitting here, leaning up back this way with his gun pointing this direction. As Martinez rounded this corner here, he saw him with his gun in this direction. He knew Mr. Crum was coming this way, and he had to come around the corner at the same time. Yes. Martinez fired from here, from this point here.
As he northwest. As he swung his rifle toward him, he fired.
As he saw him leveling the rifle, or pointing the rifle in this direction, and knowing that Mr. Crum was here.
He was pointing the rifle at Crum when Martinez fired.
And Martinez would come around this way.
So Martinez fired, and the reign of terror came to an end.
All of a sudden, things got quiet. And then Neil Spouse said on the radio, "It's over." We just, en masse, came out of the stores.
The entire campus was flooded with people. People just from everywhere, literally hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of people who had been in the buildings or had been on the periphery, just came rushing out onto the campus. Like a magnet had just sucked them all into that.
Just as I got to the tower, two detectives were bringing out Martinez, and he was in shock. I tell you, that guy, he just you know, almost rigid, and had some blood on his arm. And I asked one of the detectives, said, "Is that his blood or the other guy?" And they said the other guy's. And man, they just kept going. They didn't even slow down. Put out an extra that night. That's probably the first time since, well, maybe World War II started.